Deborah Nadine Scott was an honor student at Morgan, valedictorian in high school, and sang in the church choir.
Deb Scott would be 52 today, but we'll never know how great her life would have been because someone took hers back in 1976. And here we are, 34 years later, the family still no idea who killed their daughter. ABC 2 News' Roosevelt Leftwich hopes that this story will help the family and police.
She was a very attractive young lady.
Jean Hayes and her daughter Deborah Scott were as close as any mother and daughter pair can be.
She was always hanging around me. She would get into bed and tell me that she was going to live with me forever. She and her husband and 5 boys.
Debbie was a dream child, the lead singer in her church's choir group, the high school valedictorian, and an honor student in her freshman year at Morgan State University.
She was interested in changing the world.
April 26, 1976 was like any other day. Jean went to her job at the post office downtown. Her youngest daughter, Cheryl, went to school. Debbie stayed home to study for midterms.
We left Deborah in the house alone.
After school, Cheryl returned to the family's Woodlawn apartment. She looked through the open door and saw Debbie motionless on the floor. Cheryl ran to a nearby store and called her mother at work.
She was crying and told me that she had gone home and found the back door open and went in and saw Deborah on the floor. I didn't know. I was just trying to get home fast as I could.
When Jean got there, she found her lifeless daughter in a pool of blood. After Mom and Sister were cleared as suspects, they returned home.
Later on, when we were able to go back into the apartment, found that several things had been turned over. The only thing I recall missing was a can where we saved dimes.
Since nothing was taken from the house, police ruled out robbery as a motive. Debbie's death was a complete mystery. The scholar student didn't have any enemies, so was the killer someone that Debbie knew, or an intruder taking advantage of an unlocked door?
They didn't have any viable suspects. They couldn't find any motives. They couldn't find anyone that they felt wanted her dead.
Detectives looked into every possible lead, but all of them led to dead ends. Eventually, Debbie's case went cold.
I'm past the point of blaming. I can't change what's been done.
Jean's pains would only get worse. Some 17 years later, her other daughter, Cheryl, was killed when a city ambulance crashed into her car.
I miss not knowing, what the future would have held for her.
Jean now lives with the loss of 2 daughters, leaning on God and her family. But she is still focused on trying to figure out who would kill her oldest daughter, Debbie. Jean hopes the killer can't live with the guilt.
You need to clear your conscience. You need to come forward and hope that God will forgive you.
Forgiveness, and to help a grieving mother find peace. In Woodlawn, Roosevelt Leftwich, ABC 2 News.
Miss Jean Hayes, we're going to do our darndest to find this. If you have any information on the murder of Deborah Scott, please call police. And listen, to submit your tip, you can just call them at 1-866-7-LOCK-UP, or you can text your tip to crimes. You can also submit your tip online. Just log on to the metrocrimestoppers.org and click on Submit a Tip. And for more information on this case, log on to abc2news.com. We'll /cold cases. And if you have a case you want covered in our series, just send us an email to coldcases@wmar.com.